Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Hi there. Today we'll be talking about crypto with Tether's Chief Technology Officer, Paolo Ardoino. Tether is one of the biggest crypto projects, cryptocurrencies in the world, the biggest stablecoin, with a market cap of 84 billion USD. Hi, Paolo. It's a pleasure to have you here in Georgia at BMG to discuss about Tether's involvement in the Georgian crypto industry and in general Tether's plans and goals.
Thank you very much for your introduction, and I must say that I really love your country. So unfortunately we are staying here only for a few days. We came on late Sunday, and the food, the wine, but also the culture, the people smiling, young guys always flooding the streets. We went in different co-working spaces. You could see like the culture of innovation, the really talented boys and girls that were spending all their time till really late in night in trying to start up their own adventure. That is, I'm Italian. That is one of the things that I think we are missing in Central Europe. That is one of the things that I think my country, for example, has lost. So when I came here, I saw this beautiful city, Tbilisi. When I saw the environment, I was, wow.
Well, thank you very much for your words. It's very nice to hear when a foreign person discusses and describes Georgia in such words. Paolo, let's jump into the topics of our interview. As I just mentioned in the introduction, market cap of Tether is 84 billion USD. So my first question would be, what does Tether do in Georgia? So what is the purpose of your visit?
Yes, so Tether is kind of a simple idea. Is a cryptocurrency that is called a stable coin. But differently from all the other cryptocurrencies, the working model of Tether is to remain pegged to the dollar, to the US dollar. That is USDT, that is the most popular stable coin and one of the most popular cryptocurrencies in the world. Tether started in 2014 with this simple idea. Let's reuse this brilliant technology that Bitcoin created, but let's put a dollar on top of it, because the reality is that in many places in the world, especially emerging countries, there is a lot of need to access the dollar. Fast forward many years, in 2023, Tether grew to almost $84 billion today. It has been a really interesting ride. The way Tether changed is to become the currency of the people that are that don't have access to that doesn't have access to fair access to financial services. So we are seeing enormous growth in Argentina, in Venezuela, in Lebanon, in Turkey, and so on. And Georgia, in a way, is much better positioned, I think, from an inflation and the devaluation of their national currency point of view, right, than many of these countries. So, but here in Georgia, we have seen, as I said before, a different need, in my opinion. Like I was walking in the streets of Tbilisi, and I could see the Tether sign almost everywhere, right? So. And it happened before we came here, right? So we are not here to sell anything. We are not here to ask for anything apart how we can help, right? So what we can do. Seems like the community here is trusting our products anyway, and so it's only fair from our point of view to try to come here, ask how we can help, invest in maybe startups, provide some capital. We don't want to, we don't have the arrogance to come here and start building things ourselves. We want to be part of the culture. Recently we invested in one of the most prominent startups that you have, is called CityPay. They are providing cryptocurrency payment services. They are a great team. I'm sure they will be able to grow in Georgia, but also internationally. That is, I think that is the ambition, right? Growing on a really large scale and represent one of the best unicorns that Georgia can have. So we want to repeat this approach, listen to people, talk to entrepreneurs, talk to developers that are building something cool, and then provide them the resources, the expertise to expand globally.
Let's talk about your investment into CityPay in more detail. My first question would be, could you share some details, maybe valuation, sort of investment, and then expand on what is the purpose of the investment? So what are your joint goals together with CityPay?
So we invested on a variable valuation up to $15 million. Our entry point was like lower. We invested just before the round. The last round, and the reason of the investment is that most of these businesses are capital intensive, right? And we want them to focus on what it matters. That is the usability of the product. That is already great, but you can always fine tune it. And the business development, right? It is important to have a group of people that help you to explain the product to the merchants, right? You have to go to a merchant that has maybe a shop, might be a young guy, but might be an older person. And so it's important that this technology is not only being used by the younger generations, it's about inclusion, right? So everyone should understand it or not be afraid of it. Because it has tremendous potential. So when you want to scale, is important to have cash in hand so you can make the right investments. And of course, we are not stopping here, right? So when we invest in a company, we partner in a company, we are there for the future. For us, it's not marketing, right? So we are the type of people that you can count on for follow-up rounds, capital injection, advisory, and so on and so forth.
So basically strategic partnership.
Yes.
Right? Okay, let me ask my last question and then we'll move on. Are you planning to invest in any other Georgian startups? How do you see the ecosystem in general?
When in just these few days, we met with a couple of startups that I think have really big potential, and that's of course we are in super early stages in discussion. One is related to education. That is one of the topics in my heart. I think if I was not doing this job, I would be a teacher. They are already providing online and offline courses. They have the ability to expand even farther here in Georgia. They are quite prominent already, but they can keep growing also outside of Georgia. And that is what I like, the ambition of creating something that is global, that unifies people, and education unifies people. And also a few other opportunities that we are meeting around today. We have a couple other meetings, but we will be here more often. Of course, we hired local people already that will be our highs and years here, because it's a continuous process. You never know when the next opportunity will come.
Paolo, let's move on the regulatory side. So back in January, National Bank of Georgia adopted a law about digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and so on. And recently, they also adopted a new regulation about VASP registration process. How knowledgeable are you about this regulation, and has Tether been involved in the consultation process in any ways?
So I'm pretty familiar with the different regulatory frameworks around the world. So one of the obvious events that will happen in the next months and years is the increased regulatory scrutiny that will happen around the world, not just in Georgia, right? So I live for a part of my time in Switzerland. There is FINMA, that is the regulator there that started regulating cryptocurrencies already in 2014. In Europe, I'm Italian, so in Europe I'm familiar with the MiCA license. That is the license that will, starting from mid-2024, will provide the regulatory framework for both cryptocurrencies, stable coins, but also virtual asset service providers, VASPs. It will come. Regulations are, in general, a good thing because they are providing a framework to protect the end user, right? So we have seen how things went wrong in 2022, and so it's fair that governments are looking how to regulate this technology. But it's important when we talk with regulators to explain them that over-regulation is not the way to go, right? This is the technology that have the possibility of revolutionizing the financial business, but not only, right? Also logistics, also music.
Information transfer.
Exactly. Intellectual property and so on. So from our perspective, that is what we always trying to gather to the regulator. So we're not part of the consultations here in Georgia, but we would always be happy to be.
All right. My next question is about also the National Bank of Georgia, which is currently developing its own CBDC, digital banks, central bank national currency, and some of the international companies are currently involved in the developing process. Is Tether one of them?
We are not currently involved in that process.
All right. So what's your general take on the CBDCs? How would you describe them, and what's Tether's position about CBDCs? Could this be a threat to crypto industry and stable coins in general?
So if you allow me a couple of minutes, I will give you a broader answer because I think this is really important. So first of all, I come being the voice of Tether. We are not afraid of CBDCs for our business model. We think that the CBDCs and our products can coexist. The issue that we have, or that in general the public have with CBDCs, is the risk that it could be used to further control the people, right? So is the lack of or loss of privacy. Right now, you can choose your bank. You have a credit card from your bank, or you have an app, and your transaction, you buy coffee, you buy like a nice meal, and the transaction remains only with the bank of your choice. But with a CBDC, would be the first time that the central bank will see all the transactions of all the citizens. So the CBDC, in theory, is designed to replace cash. The cash is private, right? You want to give something to your friend, you want to buy a coffee, you can do that through cash. And cash has been used for the entire history, almost the entire history of, or recent history of humanity. And so that is the first time that people will lose their privacy in such an important way. But on the other side, there are risks also with the CBDC from the banking point of view. I was part in different meetings with different central banks around the world, and they all have a common concern. And the concern is that a CBDC could completely kill the banking industry. So, because the CBDC will be something issued by the central bank and will end up in the pockets of the citizens. So then why you need a bank, right? So, and so is kind of a 5D chess game where if you do that, like a butterfly moves its wings here, and what happens in 10 years somewhere else, right? So what if a CBDC will be heavily adopted? How you can predict how the financial ecosystem will change? and maybe will change in better, maybe not, because also banks are employing a lot of people. So what is the future of these people, with these employed people? So that is one of the risks. The second risk is, and slightly more technical, is the interest rates. Right now, with cash, you don't have positive or negative interest rates. So, of course, you have inflation that is kind of embedded a negative interest rate, but yes, but you know, if you give a CBDC, then if you apply a negative interest rate, right, in Europe, right, to hold until 2 years ago, to hold dollars in a bank.
Yeah, it was negative.
Exactly. Now, of course, it's positive. But then, if you have a CBDC, you are going to apply an interest, but if you a negative interest. But if you are going to apply a negative interest, when it turns positive, you are going to apply a positive interest rate. So it's really hard to decide and predict, and risk to really upset the people. So what I'm saying is that we are talking to many central banks that want to issue their CBDC. They want to look cool because others are doing it. It's a matter of pride and technological pride, and I
China
understand
is leading the charge.
But China did it in a way that has a different way to do things, like a bit more aggressive in the approach. More democratic countries might have harder times to introduce a CBDC.
Paolo, you just mentioned that CBDCs are not a threat to Tether's business model. I want to expand on that. Could you explain how Tether generates income to our audience? And is the issuance of the stablecoin the only purpose that your company serves?
Absolutely. So Tether works in a simple way. A customer sends us $100,000. We have a minimum threshold just to ensure that we can do the highest level due diligence on the customers. So send $100,000, we send back 100,000 USDT. That is simple process. When this person takes 100,000 USDT, trades or buy things, distribute them, and so on. Then people come back to us. They want the money back. They send us back the tokens. We wire back their money, right? Pretty simple approach. During the period when we have the money, and this moment is almost $84 billion, with that money is in our portfolio. With our portfolio, we take really simple steps to ensure that the company remains healthy and profitable, to protect all Tether users. In this moment, having $84 billion, of which the majority are invested in US Treasury bills, it yields 5% per year. It's a lot of money, right? You can easily make up to $34 billion in this environment per year, doing the simplest of the jobs, because we invest also in short-term US Treasury bills, like 3 months is our maximum. So it means that you have always the highest level of liquidity and convertibility in the dollar, that is the underlying, this currency that we have to give back to the users, but also we can accrue value in the company. That are profits. These profits in a classic VC company like Silicon Valley company would be distributed to the shareholders. The reality is, and is also the reason why we are here, the reality for us is that we are simple people, we are humble people. We don't want to have crazy things for us, right? So the most important, we are believers in the reason why cryptocurrency world started. So we are taking the majority of these profits that today are around 30 billion in just 1 year. And we want to reinvest them in companies, in environments that follow the same philosophy of decentralization, of innovation, and so on and so forth. In El Salvador, recently we participated to a $1 billion energy infrastructure building, for example. In Uruguay, the same. We invested tens of millions of dollars in energy infrastructure. We are investing tens of millions of dollars in startups and all around the world. For us, that's what matters, right? So we don't have to squeeze the last cent from this company. It's really the most important thing we can do is to make this company not only a stable coin but something bigger.
Before we move into reserves, let me just clarify, $1 billion in last fiscal year? You mean
we
profits?
made almost $3 billion in the last 16 months, pretty much.
Okay, that's
All right. So I would like to expand on the reserve side. How much cash, liquid cash, do we hold currently?
That's a great question. So you would imagine, right, the simple concept would be people give you cash and you have to keep cash sitting in the bank. The reality thing is that trying to go to Bank of Georgia, for example, and tell them, I want to keep $83 billion in cash in your bank.
That's not possible.
Exactly, that is not possible. The only thing you can do is to hold assets that represent the dollar, that is the currency that we have to pay back. That's why we picked the US Treasury bills, because they are representing of the US dollar, and they are short term, that they are highly liquid. The turnover daily is $500 billion, basically.
They are the safest
Exactly.
investment product on the market.
Exactly. Also, and look, one of our competitors made a mistake of keeping $3.3 billion in Silicon Valley Bank, right?
Yeah.
And the issue with the cash, so you cannot keep cash in the bank because the cash doesn't want, the bank doesn't want you to keep the cash. But even further, let's say that you could keep like 10% of your money in pure cash. If the bank goes bankrupt, that cash is on balance sheet, so will be dragged into bankruptcy. If you hold UST bills, they are securities, so they will be returned. So we are taking the safest approach that anyone can take. We are not leveraged. We are over-collateralized because we have around $84 billion in market cap plus $3 billion in additional reserves. That is much more than any bank in the world would have, because banks usually do fractional reserve.
Paolo, let me expand on that, because when we were discussing and researching for the interview, we basically had this idea that Tether acts in a way as a commercial bank, as a central bank, and as a payment service provider at the same time. You know, basically because all the infrastructure you have allows for all three of those things. At the same time, we came around the report by BDO, the consolidated report, and here, as you rightly mentioned, the biggest part is in U.S. Treasury bills. 53 billion by that time, but also we see some other assets, for instance, as precious metals and all that. So considering that you know, we have money market funds, we have non-US Treasury bills, let's expand a little bit more about the structure. You know, so you mentioned that it is liquid, but is it as liquid as so that it can safeguard you from, for example, some sort of bank run that Tether can have?
Sure. This is another really important question that I think owes a detailed response. So Tether in this moment have, as you said, around 56 billion now is more, 56 billion in direct ownership of USD bills. The money market funds are actually, the majority of their investment is still in T-bills, but you have to do a look through, right? So usually we want to show the right categorization to our users, but if you sum all these assets, 85% of all our assets are in cash and cash equivalent, means that they are deemed by regulators as pure liquidity. Then on top of that, we have 4% of our holdings in gold. Gold has around $12 trillion market cap, is extremely liquid, and is the thing that humanity used for the last 10,000 years for payments, right? So the reason why we have a small investment in gold is the protection against hedge cases, right? So we are seeing how geopolitics are changing in the world, and I think we owe to our users a little bit of diversification, not much, right? So if you look at, for example, the funds, even the most regulated funds, even money market funds, can have a small portion in gold, right? So, and also we have 1.8% in Bitcoin, but that 1.8% in Bitcoin is in this moment, or at the moment the attestation was around $1.5 billion. That was smaller than our company profits. So we invested less. So it's not that Bitcoin is backing up the reserves. Bitcoin is part of our profits that we are keeping in the company because we are believers in Bitcoin. And if whatever happens in the future, if Bitcoin appreciates, these Bitcoins are there still in the company. We didn't take it out as dividends to protect further the company and its users.
Let me clarify before we move to different points. So the 3 billion you mentioned includes the appreciation of the assets that you hold, including Bitcoin,
Absolutely.
Precious metals, all of that.
Yes.
Okay.
So is mark to market $3 billion more.
Okay, and just to clarify one more point, is a bank run or some sort of bank run a risk for Tether at all?
So I really like this question because it's not anymore hypothetical, my answer is facts. Last year, I'm sure you're familiar with what happened in the cryptocurrency industry. Terra Luna started, that was like an algorithmic stablecoin that was a really badly designed stablecoin. Then there was Celsius, FTX, Voyager,
and so on.
Yeah, Genesis Trading,
many 10
other.
or 15 casualties.
Yeah,
large
yeah.
casualties.
Tens of billions of dollars of damage. A group of traders, like publicly, or you can find information on Bloomberg, you can find information on Financial Times, publicly said they wanted to short Tether below $1 to cause a bank run, to prove to the world that Tether was not solid enough. And Tether, so they started borrowing USDT at 12% interest rate from lenders. Some of these lenders are the ones that, by the way, failed. So in a way, it's kind of poetic. But anyway, they started borrowing this USDT and sell them below par, right? Below $1 on secondary market, right? They went on Binance, Kraken, and so on. They start selling below par. So why they did that? If you sell USDT below par, a market maker will buy the cheap USDT at 99 cents and will send them to us, redeem them for $1, send the dollars back to the trading platform, and do this in a loop. They make 1% profit. I mean, is on
and it's a great business decision. I mean, like if you're trading.
Exactly, and it's quite simple, right? And why? And also the other reason they did that is an asymmetric bet. It means that if you short a stable coin, if you're lucky, you make money. If you're unlucky, worst case it goes back to 1. Cannot go, if you short Tesla, it can go to 2,000, right?
Yeah.
If you short a stable coin, it will remain to 1. So they took an asymmetric bet. They tried to prove that our company had problems. In 48 hours, we redeemed, so less than 2 days, also 48 hours, but it's like, 16 working hours, we were able to redeem $7 billion. That was 10% of our reserves. In 20 days, we redeemed more than $20 billion. That was 25% of our reserves, and we could have kept going. And that is the reason why now that many banks failed, especially in the US, Tether USDT grew and absorbed most of the other stablecoins. Because people are seeing that they can trust us. We have proved to be more solid than any other bank. There is a case in 2008, was Washington Mutual Bank. They were subject to a bank run for 10% of the reserves. They went bankrupt because they are heavily leveraged. We are not.
Yeah, so they tried to pull off Soros-like short-selling strategy, but they failed miserably. Let's expand on the failing stages. I mean, like, how did the Terra Luna and also FTX collapse change the industry?
I think, first of all, it's saddening to see that an industry that started with the ideal of changing the financial world made the same mistakes of what we have seen in 2007, 2008. So. That of course is not a great look. That also is why regulators that had already in the plans to regulate the industry, now they are taking harsher steps. And we cannot blame them, right? In the end, this industry is made by humans, and humans are taking sometimes stupid decisions, unfortunately. But I think, in a way, what last year, 2022, proved to people is the fact that people shouldn't focus on this industry for speculation, right? Or make money in trading is fine if you are a good trader, if you study, if you learn. Traders are extremely profitable, but is not an easy job. It's not a job that you can do on your phone when you walk around between jobs. It's not that. So for everyone else, they should understand the technology, they should learn it, but also they should understand the history behind the technology and why it's important, why it's helping so many people around the world, why there are companies like us that are embracing it and they are trying to educate the generations around it.
Well, Paolo, thank you very much for the interview. We touched upon Georgia, international topics as well. We really hope that the next time you are here, we can expand even further about different topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. It was really a nice interview.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.